think you know the story of Cain and Abel, a brother's jealousy, a murder, a divine curse. But what if everything you've been taught is a lie? What if God's punishment was not a curse, but something so terrifying, so transformative, that it was buried for millennia? Tonight, we uncover the truth that shakes the foundation of faith itself. The screen fades from black. You are not watching a story. You are entering a crime scene, the first murder in history. But the victim is not Abel. The real crime is what was done to Cain. Forget the Sunday school version. God did not curse Cain. He did something far more devastating, a spiritual surgery so profound it was erased from the text. If something in you recognizes this truth, leave a comment and stay with this story until the end. Your reaction tells me to keep opening these doors. We begin in the silence after the fall. Eden is a memory. The air is thick with the scent of earth and blood. Two brothers approach an altar. One offering is accepted, the other rejected. But the rejection is not the point, it is the trigger. What happens next is not about jealousy, it is about architecture, the invisible architecture of the soul. To understand the crime, you must see the world as it was. This is not a primitive landscape, it is a charged field of divine presence. Adam and Eve have been exiled, but the echo of walking with God still vibrates in the soil. You stand in that field. The world is young, raw, and terribly intimate. Heaven and earth are not distant realms. They are layers of the same reality. Every action has a cosmic resonance. When Cain tills the ground, he is not just farming, he is engaging in a sacred dialogue with creation. When Abel tends the flock, he is shepherding fragments of a lost harmony. The stakes are incomprehensible. This is a world where worship is physics, where a sacrifice is not a symbol, but a key that can lock or unlock realms. And into this charged silence, a question is posed by God, a question about sin crouching at the door. But what door? The door to what? The door is to the human heart, but also to a celestial courtroom. You are witnessing the invisible architecture, the covenant of life, the law of sowing and reaping written into the fabric of being. Before the foundation of the world, a template was set. Blessing for obedience, death for rebellion. But here with Cain, a new variable is introduced. What if rebellion is not merely punished, but utilized? What if God, in his sovereignty, saw a use for a fractured soul? The altar smoke that rises from Abel's offering is a pleasing aroma. From Cain's, it is a signal flare of dissonance. This dissonance does not anger God. It intrigues him. It presents an opportunity for a terrible, necessary experiment. The architecture is about to be tested, not with destruction, but with a purposeful, agonizing transformation. The foundations of mercy and justice are not just balanced, they are about to be fused in a way that will redefine humanity. The rupture. It is not a sudden explosion of rage, it is a slow, cold crystallization. You see Cain's face not contorted in anger, but hollowed out by a metaphysical despair. The rejection of his offering was not a critique of his vegetables. It was a mirror held up to his soul, and he saw nothing reflected back. No beloved son, a ghost. When he rises against Abel in the field, it is not fratricide. It is an attempt to murder the reflection of the grace he cannot possess. The blow is struck. Abel's blood soaks into the earth, and the earth itself recoils. It screams. But God's response is not immediate fury. It is a dreadful, patient interrogation. Where is your brother? The question hangs in the air, not seeking information, but incision. It cuts to the core of Cain's new reality. He has not just killed a man. He has severed a connection in the web of being. The rupture is complete. Now comes the response, and it is not what you were told. The aftermath. Chaos is too simple a word. You expect thunder, a sentence of flaming wrath. Instead, you get a conversation, a negotiation. God speaks to Cain of Abel's blood, crying out from the ground. The ground itself will now resist Cain's touch. He will be a fugitive and a wanderer. Cain cries out that this punishment is too great to bear, that anyone who finds him will kill him. And here is where the lie begins. God puts a mark on Cain, a mark of protection, we are told. So he is cursed to wander, but kept safe? The contradiction screams. The mark is not a protective tattoo. It is a brand, a designation. It is God claiming Cain for a purpose far worse than death. He is not cursed to wander the earth. He is sentenced to become the earth's living memory of sin. He is made a monument, a walking tomb. His punishment is to be eternally conscious of what he is, the embodied principle of separation. The chaos is internal, eternal, and meticulously engineered. Primary evidence. Turn to Genesis chapter 4. Read it with me now, line by line, as if for the first time. Verse 12. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. This is the supposed curse. But look at verse 15. But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. The text judders. Not so. 2 words that fracture the narrative. God contradicts the expected punishment. He intervenes, he marks. Why? To protect a murderer? No, to preserve a specimen. The mark is not for Cain's safety, it is for God's design. It is a seal setting him apart as a unique, living case study in exiled consciousness. The ground's refusal to yield is not a curse, it is a symptom. The real sentence is the mark. And the mark is a door slammed shut between his soul and rest, forever. Hidden testimony. The banned books whisper the truth. The Book of Jubilees says Cain was given a sign, but his judgment was reserved for the final day. The life of Adam and Eve depicts Cain as a trembling, tormented figure after death, pleading for mercy. Gnostic texts like the apocryphal of John go further. They suggest Cain was conceived not from Adam, but from the influence of a lower, archonic power after the fall. His murder was pre-programmed. His mark is the signature of that other god. These are not heresies to be dismissed. They are suppressed witness statements from the earliest crime scene. They point to a consensus lost to orthodoxy. Cain's punishment was ontological. It changed what he was. He became a new kind of creature, a human eternally defined by and bound to his sin, not forgiven, not destroyed, archived. This is the passage bishops ordered burned, the keepers. In the shadows of history, mystics and Kabbalists kept this flame alive. They saw in Cain the archetype of the shell, or klippat, a vessel of divine judgment that walks among us. Medieval Jewish commentators pondered the mark as a letter of God's name burned into his flesh, not protecting him, but binding him to a cosmic process of purification through suffering. Christian hermits in the desert saw Cain as the eternal wanderer, a mirror for every soul that feels exiled from God's grace. They prayed not to become him. These were the keepers of the dangerous truth, that God's justice can take a form more terrifying than annihilation preservation in a state of perpetual alienation. Write in the comments what most shook you so far and share this video with one person who also hungers for more. The keepers are few. We must become them. Modern discovery. The bombshells are not in the dirt, but in the data. Textual scholars using source criticism highlight the jarring seams in Genesis 4. The mark narrative seems spliced from a different, older tradition. Linguistic analysis of the word for mark, OT, reveals it is almost always used in the Bible for a sign of covenant or remembrance, like the rainbow for Noah. For Cain, it is a sign of a negative covenant, a covenant of exile. Furthermore, archaeological insights into ancient Near Eastern law codes show that murderers were often cast out to become living dead. their lives forfeit but prolonged as a warning. God applied this but supernaturally intensified it. Cain was made a living law, a precedent. The discovery is this: the biblical text is hiding in plain sight a theological trauma too great to state outright, the deeper truth. So what did God do that was worse than a curse? He did not reject Cain. He claimed him. He annexed Cain's very identity into the divine plan. A curse can be lifted, a fate can be mourned. But to be chosen as the permanent icon of fallen humanity, that is a metaphysical imprisonment. God did not make Cain a monster. He made him a monument. Every step Cain took for centuries was a sermon in the flesh on the cost of sin. His longevity, hinted at in the genealogies, was not a blessing. It was an extension of the sentence. He watched civilizations rise and fall, forever the stranger, forever bearing the mark that said, "This is what separation looks like." The deeper truth is about God's terrifying creativity. His justice is not merely punitive, it is pedagogical. And Cain was the first horrific lesson. Your calling. This is not ancient history, this is your mirror. In Cain, you see the ultimate fear of the spiritual seeker, that God might see your sin and not cast you out, but seal you in it, that he might use your brokenness as a permanent exhibit in the cosmos. But here is the turning point. The story of Cain is the dark backdrop for the story of Christ. Christ is the second Adam, but also the antithesis of Cain. Where Cain's offering was rejected, Christ's is ultimate acceptance. Where Cain was marked for exile, Christ bears marks of welcome. Your calling is to recognize that the same God who administered that terrible sentence to Cain offered a way out through the cross. But you must choose. Will you live in the shadow of the mark, or step into the light of a different seal, the seal of the Spirit? Physical traces. Look for Cain in the landscape of myth and stone. The city he built, Enoch, named for his son a desperate attempt to create permanence against the divine sentence of wandering. Ancient inscriptions and later legends speak of the mark of Cain as a tremble in the hands, a darkness in the eyes, a lineage that carries a stain. Medieval maps place the land of Nod on the edge of the known world, a psychic geography of exile. Art tells the story. In frescoes and illuminations, Cain is often depicted with a halo of darkness, a visual paradox. These are not mere stories. They are the collective unconscious wrestling with the truth. The physical trace is in the human heart that knows what it is to wander, to feel branded by past mistakes. The ruins are inside you. The opposition. Who buried this? Institutional religion. Why? Because a God who preserves a sinner as a living warning is a God of terrifying, unpredictable sovereignty. It is easier to preach a simple curse, a punishment that ends. It is harder to preach a God whose justice involves the eternal conscious repurposing of a human soul. This truth destabilizes easy moralism. It suggests that some consequences are woven into the identity, not just the biography. The early church fathers, building a religion of redemption and clear boundaries, softened this. They turned the mark into a mystery of protection. They made Cain a cartoon villain. But the original text, the hidden testimonies, they scream otherwise. The suppression was not malice, it was pastoral terror. Can you handle a God this profound? Your decision. Now you know. The veil is torn. You stand at the same crossroads Cain did, but with revelation he never had. Will you accept the sanitized version of God, packaged and safe? Or will you embrace the terrifying, majestic God of Genesis 4a, God whose ways are higher, whose justice is a fire that refines even as it horrifies? This is not about intellectual assent. It is about the posture of your soul. Will you wander in the land of Nod of your own making? Or will you seek the city with foundations, whose architect is God? The mark is either your brand or your reminder. Choose. If this journey is opening your eyes, tell me in the comments what changed for you and follow this channel. The final door is ahead, the final unveiling. We return to the field. The blood is still wet. God speaks to Cain, but listen now to the words beneath the words. You will be a restless wanderer. The Hebrew word navanad implies a trembling, shaking wanderer, not a geographic condition, a neurological one, a spiritual epilepsy. The mark was not to protect him from others. It was to ensure he could never escape himself. God did something far worse than curse him. He made Cain the canvas upon which the portrait of divine justice would be painted for all ages. He was not damned, he was drafted. And in that dreadful drafting, we see the shadow of a love so severe, it will use even the worst of us to teach the rest of us. The story of Cain is the prologue to the gospel, a gospel where another bearing marks offers a different way. Share this truth. It was buried for you. Now let it live.